Alright, so today we're going to talk about Konami a little bit. And people always have things to say about Konami. They're usually not good, that's myself included. But today is Konami Appreciation Day. So I'm going to talk about all the things that Konami does for Yu-Gi-Oh! That I think sometimes go underappreciated or just understated a little bit. If you hop on any Yu-Gi-Oh forum, Facebook group, Discord server, Reddit thread, you'll hear these things like, Komani, they're so greedy. How are they, like they're killing this game. They hate the players. They don't do this. They don't do that. They're short printing everything. Their ban lists are awful. This, that, and the other. And some of the criticisms that are lobbied against them are quite valid. I have a number of criticisms against Konami myself, but I do think that it's easy to get like lost in the negativity and lost in kind of what we want and forget that Konami does do a lot of good for this game and the community. So while I will not be singing their praises in this video, because like I said, I have my own set of issues with them and that won't change just because I'm praising some things, here's just some things to consider that might, broaden the perspective or contribute to the conversation somehow, or maybe I just need another video to blabber for a while. Alright, so, first things first, ban lists. So, people oftentimes think that Konami's ban lists are awful, and that's usually what you'll see whenever a ban list comes out, is what, they hit that and they didn't hit that, what, they brought this thing back to one that's going to be so broken, what, I can't believe that they completely left this deck unchanged, or, wow, they're just doing this thing to sell a product, that's the only reason they banned this card. There's maybe some validity to some of that stuff, great. I'm not here to focus on that. What I am here to focus on is the fact that Konami actually has not done a bad job with ban lists in the last many years. Actually, I don't know. I was thinking about this before I started filming, and I was like, okay, people don't like Konami's ban lists, but usually they end up kind of working out, almost every time. They usually do hit problem cards eventually. They don't hit them the very day that they become a problem card, but they do end up hitting them. Firewall Dragon ended up getting banned. A recent example is, True King of All Calamities ended up getting banned. The decks that are problems do end up getting hit in most cases. And it's usually sooner than, we maybe give them credit for. So that's one of the things that I think is really good. I also think that we have to consider changing things on a ban list has huge ramifications. And so I think for Konami, as much as we would like for maybe all the top decks of the format to just get chopped down, let's ban this, let's ban that, let's limit this, let's limit that, sometimes it's okay to let a format just play out and let a metagame evolve and let players answer, things for themselves and find solutions for themselves. There are a lot of cards that I know people complained about a lot initially when they were released. Those cards didn't end up getting hit, and now those cards are seen as more or less fine. A really good example, Evenly Matched. I remember when Evenly Matched came out in Circuit Break in 2017, and there were people who were calling for this card to get banned. They're just this is so broken, it banishes everything, it's so unfair, I hate the way this card works. But nowadays, Evenly Matched is just kind of standard fare. It's just part of the game. I don't really find as many people complaining about it at all, and certainly not saying that it should just get outright banned. There's plenty of counterplay, it's not even played all that much, and oftentimes in today's climate it will just find itself getting negated. Another thing that people really wanted to get hit was Trickstar Reincarnation. This was back kind of in the 2017, 2018 days, where this card, Trickstar Reincarnation, had this combo with Droll and Lockbird, where it would just take your hand away. And while that combo was quite unpleasant to face, it didn't ever get banned. And so you would think, okay, wow, Konami is just ignoring us, they're letting this degenerate combo stay in the game. But as you guys can sort of see, it never ended up being truly game breaking. There was counterplay even to that, and eventually Trickstars kind of fell out of the meta. That's partly because other Trickstar cards got hit, but the cards that we were, screaming for to get hit didn't get hit. So, everything was fine. A very recent example is Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, a card that a lot of people are like, okay, this card is just, it's so unfair and it needs to be banned. I don't think Konami's banning it. I don't think that they will because while it is a strong card, there's counterplay, and I feel that give it a few months and people will find ways to just deal with it or just kind of not worry about it. Borrelsword Dragon, another example. I remember when people were all upset because, every deck just summons Borrelsword and OTKs, but Borrelsword never got hit, and here we are now. I mean, do people even play it in their extra deck? In many cases, no. Not in the, competitive scene so much. So that's something to keep in mind. And also, like, Yu-Gi-Oh players, we just don't know what we want. If I was to ask you guys, like, right now, okay, what's the next ban list need to be? I'm going to get a billion different answers. And you guys will all respond to each other and be like, here's why you're wrong, here's why you're wrong, here's why you're wrong. It happens every time. This is clockwork. You think that you have the perfect way to balance this game. If they just brought this card back, if they just hit these cards exactly this way, it would all be fine. But player B has a completely different opinion. Are you right? Is he right? Is she right? Does it, we all can kind of have these conversations, and I think that the conversations themselves are good to have. What are the problem cards? What should be hit? What's a problem versus what seems like it's kind of more of a diversion? But at the end of the day, I like that Konami is the one making these ban lists. A lot of people say that we should get player input for ban lists and have polls and surveys. I think that'd actually be not a great idea. I don't think enough of us know what we're doing. We're not the ones balancing a game. And that's another thing with defending Konami here. They've balanced this game for many years. Their R&D department has plenty of other flaws that we could maybe talk about, but I think that they're the ones who are making these ban lists, so we should have some respect and keep in mind that they do know what they're doing. It might not seem like they know what they're doing, but they know what they're doing. This game is still alive and well and running. And that's the next point, is that Konami's kept this game alive. I know there's always a kind of idea that they're killing this game, either it's the ban list argument or something like short prints or making broken, busted cards or whatever. But Yu-Gi-Oh's still going strong. Before the pandemic hit, we were getting more and more people at every YCS event. The competitive scene was growing, and even during the pandemic, sales of the products themselves are up. There's, a lot more interest in classic sort of nostalgia cards. There's a lot more interest in new sets. There's a lot more cards that people want to pull. I think that you can cite a lot of good decisions Konami's made in this regard. There's stuff like Starlight Rares that people are after that make sets more chaseable. There's stuff like Collector's Rares that, in my opinion, nearly rival Ultimate Rares in terms of just how nice and clean and sophisticated they really look. And those have really caught on with players. A lot of people really like this stuff. There's also lots of really cool, alternate art cards and stuff like that have been released. Things like, that upcoming IP Masquerena, we know that there's a new alternate art of her. People really like that. People like the alternate arts of a lot of the Ghost Girl cards. People like a lot of, just different products that have released. Like when they make custom sleeves of Dark Magician Girl or the custom deck boxes and stuff like that. People love buying those. They like the DMG Lost Art Collection. The Lost Art Collection in general is something that Konami, I think, deserves some credit for, because people complain about card censorship. How dare they change the name of this card? How dare they change the art and censor it? Well, now they've been uncensoring them through the Lost Art promotions. Yeah, sure, you can say, well, they should have done it in the first place. But they're bringing them back now, and it's in a pretty fun, special way, because it rewards you for, going to your local card shop and buying cards and participating. So that's a really good thing that Konami's done here. And, I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. There's lots of other things I feel like I could cite here. Like, for instance, they didn't have to do remote duels. Yeah, it'd be great if we had an official simulator, but the fact that they're at least trying to do remote duels, I think, is something that they should get credit for. They've turned remote duels from something that was kind of like this awkward, weird thing, and no one's really sure about it, to there's remote duel invitationals and extravaganzas every other week, and people are getting a lot of prizes for them. People play in them. I see a lot of my fellow content creators playing in them. People get excited about it. They're getting cards. It's keeping the game alive, and that's really cool. We've gotten some really cool exclusive cards recently, 10,000 Dragon and that special language Utopia card, the Astral language or whatever it's called. And, so stuff like that is really neat in my opinion. I also think that unlike other card games, something that Konami does really well with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is we get a nice sort of steady flow of products that release. In many card games, they'll start with some starter decks or trial decks or whatever they're called, and then they'll get their first set and they might get a new set every 3 months. In Yu-Gi-Oh! We also get a new set every 3 months, but we have so many sets in between that, Yu-Gi-Oh! Always feels like there's something right around the corner. So, for instance, you can buy a main series set, or you can skip it. But no matter what you do, there's another thing. There's another structure deck a couple weeks away. There's another deck builder pack another couple weeks away. Another reprint set a couple weeks away, or the fun spin-off sets like Toon Chaos or King's Court or whatever that's coming up. Neat things like that. Dual Devastator, that was a really fun product. There's a lot of different products, and they come out, with just increasing frequency. The only reason that's even changed recently is just because of the pandemic, and that's something that's out of Konami's control, so I can't, really blame them for that. But speaking of things like Maximum Gold or Goals from the Past, reprints. Konami reprints cards. And I know people are like, okay, well, the cards should be cheap to begin with, or, well, of course they better reprint these cards. Not every card game really gets reprints per se, and not as in the way that Yu-Gi-Oh does. As much as we complain about Yu-Gi-Oh card prices and like card availability and stuff like that, one nice thing about playing Yu-Gi-Oh is that you can point to specific reprints that pretty much always happen about a year after a card releases. So, yes, sure, right now certain cards like Forbidden Droplets or Ice Dragon's Prison or maybe Zeus or whatever are expensive, but we know that in this year's Megatins, like the previous year's Megatins, because it's a pattern that you can trace back, we will get these cards reprinted. That, to me, is sort of a source of comfort. It means that I know that I don't have to spend a bunch of money immediately out the gate. If I don't want to, I can wait and the cards will get reprinted. That's nice. I know that it sucks that, the cards are expensive for a time, but that's most collectibles, and that's most games that have like some sort of a microtransaction. Pay to win's not that uncommon, it sucks, but they don't have to reprint these cards. Imagine if Konami just didn't reprint the cards and you just kind of were stuck and had to deal with it, and that was just like, okay, tough luck. So the fact that they do reprint these cards multiple times a year, usually there's a reprint set in the spring, usually there's a reprint set in the fall, and then there's also the tins, and there's Battles of Legend. So, I mean, there's a lot of reprints in Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards do become accessible. And a final thing that I think people don't give Konami enough credit for, or rather a common complaint that gets levied, is why are they printing all these broken cards? These cards that they know are going to get banned or, just so OP, why even print them in the first place? And I think the reason why, as I've explained this in a past video about why like strong Yu-Gi-Oh cards are actually a good thing. Strong cards get people talking. Yeah, we can say that something like Zeus is too strong, or, Pot of Prosperity is too good, or Droplets is broken, or Dark Ruler No More is broken, or Nibiru is so strong, and Saki. But the existence of these cards are conversation pieces. When a card like this gets announced, or leaked, or revealed, or whatever, and comes out, people have conflicting opinions. Should it be banned? Should it not be banned? Is it unfair? What's the counterplay? Those conversations keep Yu-Gi-Oh! Interesting. It's hard to consider, but when there aren't exciting cards coming out, that actually feels like when the game is just at its most bland and dull. I remember, people look back fondly on 2019 as a format, and I think it was really great. But one of the problems that 2019 had, that's the, Orcus, Sky Striker, Salamangreat, Thunder Dragon sort of format, was that the latter sets that year just didn't make a dent because they didn't have any good cards in them. Rising Rampage, Chaos Impact, a lot of these sets, like they introduced stuff like Marincess, but like it didn't have any impact because it wasn't as good as the decks that were already out. And then there weren't really any like super powerful staples in a lot of those sets. And so the sets just kind of felt boring. And that's one of those things where, people want exciting cards. We don't think we do, but we do. Exciting cards are what get us talking. Exciting cards are what spur conversations. That's where the video content comes from. That's where the news gets at its most exciting. Because we're always chomping at the bit for new stuff. When you think about your favorite archetype that hasn't gotten support, when new support gets announced, what's the first thing we think of? Like, how good is this? We get excited when the support is good, and we're disappointed when the support is bad. So for Konami to release powerful, borderline broken cards, yeah, it might make the game feel unhealthy. People complain about needle fiber, people complain about union hanger and all these things, but they are interesting and exciting cards, and they do get people talking, and that is something that I think just oftentimes goes a bit underappreciated. Is just that there are neat cards, and that's what you want in a game, is for the game to be exciting and to change. And one more point about ban lists too is, people will maybe claim that, well, maybe they only hit this card to sell a new card. But in some cases, I don't even think it's that bad. Like, sometimes it's nice to get rid of the old guard of decks and kind of push them out of the way so that the new stuff can shine. Because let's face it, if Sky Trackers didn't get hit, they'd still be here today. Yeah, they get hit so that you'll buy new stuff, but you'd be complaining if Sky Trackers were still around in like 2021 and like still being played. And that can be said of many top tier decks. I think that right now stuff like Tri Brigade and Dogmatica and those sorts of things are new and interesting, but like, would you still want to be facing these same decks like a year from now or 2 years from now? So maybe they do need to get hit so that you'll buy new stuff. I don't know. All right, I feel like I've gone on long enough here. Before you get in the comments and say that I'm just defending Konami, blindly and forgiving them of all their flaws, I have plenty of flaws with Konami. You can check plenty of videos on this channel where I've been extremely critical of them. I am still very critical of them. There's stuff that they do with the game that I don't like. There's stuff that they do behind the scenes that I have heard about and know about and don't really like. There's issues I have with working with them as a content creator and just the way they interact on social media and all sorts of things. So I don't want to absolve them of their sins. Those sins exist and some of them are pretty bad. I'm just saying that we should be thankful that we do have Konami doing some of the things they do and that this game still exists and is still fun to play. Alright, gone on long enough here. Let me know what you guys think. Am I just being a sellout shill, or you think Konami paid me to make this video? They didn't. Maybe not if they did. But, or do you think that maybe there's a point here and there can be some appreciation and criticism at the same time? Because, we're not all just heroes or villains here. Alright, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Fast turn.